what great work looks like, where it comes from, and how it's changing. These are, of course, questions we wrestle with every day at the journalism school. We're in an era where what journalists learn, what a school like ours teaches, is in continuous motion as we try to integrate computational science and data science into the techniques of investigative reporting, and to have winners like we do tonight who represent both the new emerging practices of investigative reporting, as Giannina Segnini does. We're very proud to have her on our faculty this year, and to have reporters who are working from bedrock values that go back really to the beginning of the 20th century, the strongest traditions of independent foreign correspondence, as Tracy Wilkinson represents. It's a very important signal of continuity and confidence and excellence at a time when many journalists are looking to prizes like this one and to institutions like Columbia for guidance about what matters and how to define journalism's role in open societies. So we're really very, very proud of what the winners have done, but also the role that the board and the judges play in renewing this kind of leadership year after year. It's my privilege to introduce one of the people responsible for that achievement, the chair of the Cabot board. She's a past Cabot Prize winner for her investigative reporting and editing at Semana, the great Columbia news magazine. And she was recently named director of the Open Society Foundation's Program for Independent Journalism, where she's going to play a very powerful leadership role in fostering strong investigative reporting in every corner of the world. I know this because I had the privilege of listening to her talk about her plans and her vision, and so she's going to be a really great leader in independent journalism all over the world. So please join me in welcoming Maria Teresa Ronderos.
Well, good night, and thank you so very much, Steve, for your kind words. Well, recipients of the Mariah Morse Cabot Awards and their proud families, Dean Coll, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the jury of this award, many of whom are here tonight, who were kind enough to appoint me as their speaker for tonight's ceremony, I want to congratulate all the winners. Giannina, Tracy, Paco, and Frank, and our Venezuelan colleagues Laura and Tamoa, who will receive special citations for exercising independent journalism under extreme duress. This is a celebration of the best journalism in the Americas, which you all represent with flying colors. You contribute to the better understanding of the people on this continent, be it with cutting-edge data journalism that is exposing tax evasion, the hiding of sometimes not very lawful capital in havens, with incisive humor that strips the powerful of their self-importance, with razor-sharp, courageous reporting that unveils the suffering of the people living under criminal domains, or with acute and sensitive stories that reveal the extremes of our societies, the violent and the brutal, but also the modern and the sophisticated. Juries usually say at every award-giving ceremony that the selection of winners was particularly difficult this time around. But truly, this time around, the competition was fierce. And up to the end, we had at least a dozen finalists whose careers were all outstanding. Despite the crisis in newsrooms, the shortages in reporting, and the spread of government-controlled media in many of the countries of this continent, journalism is thriving, resorting to creative methods of reporting, crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, interacting with its public to create democratic hubs, without forgetting that at the end of the day, telling a good, enjoyable human stories is what this craft is about. So, de parte del jurado, you are winners among winners tonight, and we are here to celebrate you and your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. And it's now my privilege to introduce the president of Columbia University. He became Columbia's 19th president in 2002. He's a member of the law school faculty, comes from a family of journalists, and of course, many of you know him as a preeminent First Amendment scholar and thinker. We at the journalism school know him as the best university president any journalism school could ever wish for. He's done more to advance the cause of free expression and to strengthen journalism, both at the university but around the world, than any university president I'm aware of in the post-war period. And so it's a great honor to work with him. Please welcome Lee Bollinger.
Thank you very much, Steve. Of course, the main purpose for my being here is to confer the citations and help the awardees this evening, which I am thrilled to do always. But I'd like to say just a few things about the world and about Columbia's role in the world. It's a time of course, great conflicting forces when you think about openness, freedom of speech, freedom of the press around the world. So, we have the first ever truly global communication system with the internet that we all know is extremely recent and yet is having profound effects every place you look. And this sort of spirit of freedom is, I think, alive and well, and we see it in many manifestations all over the globe. And yet the forces of repression are sort of equal to the match, unfortunately, and we see that in very, very bad forms. Of course, the killing of journalists, of protesters, of dissenters, of the jailing of people simply because they have a different point of view from the orthodox view. I mean, these are travesties by any standards. Certainly by fundamental human rights standards. But there are many other ways in which freedom is under threat, and there's a new playbook of authoritarian regimes, quasi-soft authoritarian regimes, and we see that in many countries around the world, and unfortunately in Latin America. There's a big question about what a great university can do to help on something of this nature. Obviously, a great university is committed to freedom, freedom of mind, freedom of ideas, the advance of knowledge through conflicting expressions of opinion and belief. So it resonates very deeply with the spirit of a great university. But this university has some particular assets to bring to this, and I would start with the journalism school, and I would start with great deans like Steve Coll and the faculty there. I mean, I just can't say enough about how proud we are at Columbia of the journalism school, the only one in the Ivy League, which strikes me as inexplicable, but there it is. And it is an intellectual leader, but a leader in ways that we value enormously, which is it has real effects on the world, and of course it's oversubscribed with students, which is another great sign. So we have the journalism school, and that's a force, but we also have people all over the institution who in one way or the other care about openness around the world, and in the law school, certainly there are several. And yet I have to say, my own view is that we have not taken that sort of belief in openness and brought our attention to the world as much as we should. This prize is a prime example of what it is you can do as a university with just honoring people who do outstanding work and are courageous in the face of repression, and have a standard of excellence in advancing understanding, information, and knowledge. There are many things, again, we're doing, but there's just not enough. And so we're beginning to think about how to interact more with the world in a much deeper way at the institution. We have global centers in 8 places around the world. These are not branch campuses. They are really there to help facilitate work around the world, and 2 are in South America, in Santiago and in Rio. And one of the things that Steve and I and some other people are talking about is whether we can advance institutionally centers for freedom of expression and press around the world. And I have a little project myself working with Agnes Calamard, who was head of Article 19, to do some very fundamental things like gather the case law around the world of judges on freedom of the press and freedom of speech, which never been done before, just to have that accumulation. And I know in law school worlds, that was what was done in the 1920s and 30s that created in this country the sense of a national law. And my belief is, my hope is that that could be the basis of a global sense of evolving norms about freedom of speech and press. And of course, there are many ways in which we could improve Article 19 and the Inter-American Court on Human Rights and all of that. But that requires us to know more than we do about the world. And for those of us like me who grew up being a First Amendment law professor, that's a big task. We're pretty ignorant, I'm afraid. So we have a lot to learn, and we're very committed to that. And then we have some other projects that we're working on as well. So let me just say to you that I admire you incredibly. This prize is really completely congruent with what we think Columbia stands for. The journalism school appropriately houses it. And as a university, I hope you know that Columbia is always looking for ways to try to help your world be better.